Okay, so since we are on day 10 of the challenge, this will be our last two positional exercises. And in this position, it's white's turn to move. What do you think? Who has a better position here? You can pause the video to think about it. Okay, so we can say here that white has a small advantage because even though material is equal, if you add up all the points, you'll see that material is equal. Let me just quickly show you. It's a queen for a queen. It's a rook for a rook, a bishop for a bishop, and then a knight for a rook, but we have 6 pawns and white has 4 pawns. So we have a knight and 2 pawns for a rook. So material, everything is equal. In terms of development, we'll have to say it's probably more or less equal as well. With regards to king safety, white has a little bit of advantage here because the black king seems to be more of a target in this position than the white king. And then finally, in terms of center control, white has an advantage here, particularly with reference to this pawn and bishop that form a very strong bond here in the center. You see the queen and the rook aren't nearly as effective as they would have been if this bishop and pawn didn't control the center this way. Okay, so now that we've said that white has a small advantage, specifically in the center and also in terms of king safety, I'm going to suggest 2 moves here and ask which one you think is better. Rook takes f6 or knight to h5. Think a bit about these moves. Calculate a little deeper if you want, and then say which one do you think is better. Okay, let's look at the move rook takes f6 first, because after queen takes, we've exchanged a lot of the pressure in this position. And now it's much harder for white to improve his position. He needed that rook to help him add pressure on the black king. So it's not a mistake, but the move knight h5 would be better. Let me show you why. Because it adds pressure on black, and of course you should have seen that if black tries to exchange, he can't because of our checkmate threat. Okay, so that's actually the point behind this move. We prevent the exchanges. We don't give our opponent a chance to exchange right away. Instead, we try to add as much pressure as possible and keep as many pieces on the board as possible. That's an important strategy if you're attacking your opponent's territory. You don't want to exchange pieces. I often see beginners, they develop their pieces, they bring their pieces into good positions, and then suddenly they exchange those pieces for defending pieces. That's not a good strategy. You have to try to keep the pressure up as long as possible. Okay, so that's the end of this example. Let's move on to the last one. Black to move here. What do you think? Who has an advantage? Use your 5-step evaluation process and then say, what do you think? You can pause the video to think about it. Okay, so black has an advantage in this position for 2 reasons. First reason is with regards to king safety. Even though the black king is in the middle of the board, he seems relatively safe. There's no easy way for the white pieces to attack him at the moment. Whereas the white king, on the other hand, is under pressure. He can easily be attacked. And also this bishop is ready to help with an attack against white's king. So we can say that black definitely has an advantage in terms of king safety. And the other reason he has an advantage is he's threatening to win a pawn right away. As a matter of fact, he's going to win that pawn now, and then he's going to lead in material. He could also take with the bishop. So this is my question now. Which move do you think is better? Bishop takes f2 or queen takes f2? Compare these 2 moves and then say what you think. Pause the video to think about it. Okay, let's look at the move queen takes f2 first. And after the queen exchange and maybe white develops his rook. Okay, black is a pawn ahead, so that's a nice advantage. But he's lost all of the pressure that he had against the white king. Let's compare that with the other move. Bishop takes f2, which is the correct move. It's much stronger because it wins the pawn and at the same time it keeps a lot of pressure up against the white king. Okay, you don't want to exchange if you have pressure on your opponent. You want to try to keep the pieces on the board so that you can keep the pressure on your opponent for as long as possible. Because the longer you keep the pressure up, the bigger the chance becomes that they actually fail under the pressure and they make a mistake. Okay, so with that, I want to congratulate you. You've reached the end of the 10-day chess challenge. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you've learned a lot. If you enjoyed the course, I want to ask you to please tell your friends about it, share a link of my website and support me in that way. And also I just want to make a concluding comment to remind you that the most important thing we did in this course is we focused on the two thinking methods, the evaluation thinking method and the calculation thinking method. There are a lot of other things in chess that's also important that I didn't talk about, and I did that on purpose because I don't want to confuse you with too much theory. That's often a problem many chess players have. They study too much theory, they study books, they study all sorts of different ideas, and then they struggle to apply them in their games. And that's because they've never established these two thinking processes to calculate properly and to know how to evaluate the position properly. You see, once you've established your thinking processes, then everything else becomes much simpler. It becomes much easier to study theory because suddenly you will see how the theory affects your pawn structure or how it affects your piece development. And that's why these two thinking processes are so important. And that's all that I have for you now. Hopefully we'll chat again soon. Cheers.